Hi, welcome to Cinemasters. I'm Casey.
And I'm Payson.
Before we get started today, I want to let you all know to click on the Amazon Associates link down below. If you click on the link, anything you buy on Amazon, we get 10% back on it, and it does not add to your overall price. So go ahead and do that and support your favorite film channel while you're at it.
Absolutely. All right, so we made it.
Somehow we did it.
We somehow made it through the trenches of 2017, and we are now in the bright, hopefully glowing future for the remainder of 2018.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But before we go into 2018, I think it's about time we talk about the important things of 2017.
You know, family, holidays.
No.
Oh.
I'm talking about the movies.
Oh, okay. My bad.
And I gotta say, I'm not sure about you, 2017 was an amazing year for films for me.
Oh, yes.
There were just dozens and dozens of films that I saw that I absolutely loved, that touched me in some sort of way. There's of course some schlock that came out this year, as every year, but the amount of good that hit theaters this year, I was very, very impressed with.
This list was so hard to make, and like I was telling you before, the top 5 was almost impossible for me to get in the right order that I wanted it. I kept changing it like every single day. I was like, no, maybe I like this one a little bit more, and then like the top 10. Oh, it was such a hard list to make.
Yeah, that is the hard thing about making a top 10 list, where usually you have a pretty cemented, like, okay, I want these 5 movies to be on, and then it's just like a cutting room to see what movies it's almost like you're killing your babies.
Yeah.
Like, what movies are going to be able to make the cut.
And you're like, I want you on there so bad, but you this one's just so much better than you.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, you know?
And I'll always say this, coming up with what your number 10 movie is always going to be a heck of a lot harder with what's going to be your number 1 movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to think, like, I am leaving all these movies off. Like last year, when I was making my top 10 movies of 2016 list, I think I had like 5 movies that I wanted to be honorable mentions that I thought, and really only like 3 that like really pained me that I couldn't put on the list. This year, I had 12 honorable mentions.
Oh my God.
And probably close to 10 of them, I was killing myself that I could not put them on the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we should just let them know how we're going to do this. We each made our own top 10 in our individual favorite movies of 2017. He's going to start out. He's going to say his number 10. I'm going to do my number 10. He'll go 9. I'll go 9. And then at the end, before we get to our number 1, we'll say our honorable mentions. And then we'll reveal the granddaddy of them all, our number 1s. So why don't we start off?
Awesome. Sounds good. So for my number 10, to get the list started, I have A Ghost Story.
Okay.
This movie, when I saw it, it was just such a cinematic experience, because I walked out and I was shocked. I was like, what did I just watch? I cannot believe that I just experienced this movie. It has some flaws to it, definitely, and there's a lot of controversy on whether people like it or not. You know, lots of people aren't huge on it, and I can see why. I can definitely see why. But for me, it touched me like in a personal sense, unlike lots of the other movies that have come out this year. So this was tough because I was like, I want this on the list, but there were so many other movies to do. So there was a couple that I'll mention in my honorable mentions that were close to this one, but I ended up keeping it on there just because of the experience I had when watching it. So.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the first of many A24 movies I hope we're going to be talking about this year. And I don't want to say too much because we are going to be talking about this later. All I'll say is that for the people that crapped their pants when they saw Mother because they were like, this movie is nothing that I've ever seen, they would kill themselves if they saw A Ghost Story.
Yeah,
because
they would.
A Ghost Story makes Mother look like, I don't know, Friday the 13th in
Yeah,
comparison. It makes it look
exactly,
that
yeah.
mainstream. But
Yeah.
I really did love how just it was its own movie and how it did not care whether you liked it. It was there to tell its own story. And yeah, I'll talk about it later.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so struggling with my number 10, once again, it's like a Sophie's Choice. Like, what is going to be the movie that is going to make the final cut, basically? And for me, I decided to go with Jordan Peele's directorial debut in Get Out. 2017 was a surprisingly good year for horror, and for me, Get Out was probably the best horror movie to come out this year. Because not only is it an excellent horror movie in its own right, but it tackles on these social and societal issues with race in the Deep South. and the way how Jordan Peele was able to craft an amazing horror movie around it that is legit scary at points. Like, I know some people were just like, oh, I thought it was, I got the humor moments, which don't get me wrong, there are humorous moments in this movie, but I didn't really get the scary moments. This movie, it hit me, especially because, like, this is a movie that is really elevated if you see it in a full theater, because the reactions that this movie got out of me and everyone in the audience just elevated to the experience.
Yeah, I could see, when I saw it, it wasn't like a full theater, and it for me it was still just as fun. But seeing it with a full theater, I could imagine how that would escalate the experience so much more.
Yeah, and once again, just Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, they were all fantastic. The entire cast. The guy that plays the TSA agent was
great.
so hilarious.
He was so perfect in the
Yeah.
movie. He he pretty much added most of the comedy to it, and it felt so perfect whenever he came out. It wasn't like he was the annoying, funny character in the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's back. Yeah, I'm so excited, you know?
Yeah, and another thing I really loved was, like, and I know it's funny because I know Daniel Kaluuya was in an episode of Black Mirror, but this almost kind of felt like a
Black
long
Mirror.
Black
Yeah.
Mirror episode. And let me tell you, this movie is really good on his first watch. It's amazing on the second watch. Like, you get these little
Like details, little
details
hints.
that now that you know what's going to happen, you see and you're like, oh, that is genius. Like, there's this one part where Allison Williams Rose, she's eating cereal and she perfectly segregated each Fruit Loop in the cereal so that way nothing is touching. It's amazing.
Oh, that's amazing.
And the way how this movie tackles, like, oh, these older white citizens are getting tired and they use. By the way, spoilers for all these movies. Sorry, guys. If they're really bad, if they're really big ones, I'll warn you. But we are going to be spoiling.
Yeah, with this one, it kind of gave it away in the trailer, so
yeah.
we should know.
But like how they are taking their knowledge and their attributes out of these African Americans and putting them in, so that way they can remain young. It is a creepy movie that had me unsettled the entire time.
Yeah, this was one that I had in my honorable mentions, but
Okay.
we might as well just talk about it now. Because,
Yeah.
But yeah, this one was a tough one that I didn't put in my number 10 out, and it was a tie between this and A Ghost Story, and I totally agree. Like when for me, this movie is perfectly paced.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When I walked out, I was amazed that the movie was over. I was like, I thought there was still like an hour left. It felt like every moment felt necessary as it went along, and that's what I loved so much about it. Is like it just flowed so nice, you know. It was so enjoyable and it was so fun, and I agree. It was like it creeped me out, you know. I was just like, ugh.
And when you do go to the sunken place, and when the shit starts going down in this movie, the thing I loved is that, like, the main character of Chris, he's not making your average, like, dumb horror movie decisions. Everything he makes, like, it makes sense. Like, when the guy's strangling him, and he's, like, trying to get to the door, and when he finally realizes, okay, I'm gonna, when the next time he puts his leg up, I'm gonna stab his leg as fast as I can. Like, that's like, a real thing someone would do, and I loved that, like, the characters felt real, and they were smart in a horror, because
They were real, but it was an extraordinary scenario. But
yes, of course.
The actors and the directing made it like that much more concrete, and that was more enjoyable. Yeah,
and
totally.
yeah, it was just. I'm excited for what Jordan Peele does next, because the entire time I was watching this movie, I was unsettled, even in the points where like nothing's really going on.
Because then it kind of something bad's gonna happen. You know, you're just like, oh, what's gonna happen next? This can't be nice for long. You know.
So yeah, number 10, Get Out. Really
awesome.
loved it.
So for me, number 9, I know where this is gonna be on your list. For me, it wasn't as high, but I know it's on your list somewhere. I have 3 Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Okay.
Yes, this movie was so good. Like every aspect of it was so freaking good.
Yes.
The acting was incredible. The cinematography and even the music was just
Oh yeah.
It was so good and so much fun, and it was hilarious and thought-provoking, and I really liked it. I had a couple little issues with it, so that's why it's not so much higher on my list. But yeah, I think Frances McDormand, that's how you pronounce her name,
Frances
right?
McDormand, of course.
Oh my God,
she
she killed
a queen
it.
of cinema.
She killed it.
Excellent.
And like she just personified the character so well, because this character would be so easy to make cartoonish and ridiculous, with the
Yes.
things that she does, like kicking school kids in the balls.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be like, oh come on, no one would actually do that. But when you watch the movie, you're like, oh my god, she's a badass.
Drilling, taking the drill and drilling it into the dentist's finger.
Exactly, you know? Like, it would be so easy to make this cartoonish and unrealistic. But when I walked out of the theater, I was like, was that based on a true story?
Yeah.
For a while, I thought it was based on a true story.
Yeah,
and I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, no, it was all fake.
It feels like real, like, Midwestern people.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Once again, it'll appear later on my list.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a very good film.
Yeah,
Martin
fantastic.
Martin McDonagh's really building an impressive filmography.
He deserves all the nominations and awards he'll be getting this season. He did incredible on this one.
So my number 9 is definitely one of the more delightful and happy movies I saw this year, and that is The Big Sick. Michael Showalter's The Big Sick. I know you have a personal vendetta and hatred against most romantic comedies, and I get it.
Yep.
Of all genres, they usually fall into the most, like, cliched and, like, bad writing that you usually find.
Yeah.
For my disaster movie is your romantic comedies.
Yeah.
Like, the way how I hate disaster movies, you hate romantic comedies. But, gosh, this movie was such a cheery movie, in a way. Like, watching the story of how Kumail Nanjiani, the star of this movie, and Emily V. Gordon, how he met his wife, Emily V. Gordon, you hear that concept and you're like, well, this sounds a bit like Passion Project. Like, this scene sounds a bit vanity. Like, it seems like this could fail. But it's such a human story, and it's such a relatable story in a way because you see this character in Kumail, that's his name, he plays himself in the movie, and he's just really struggling to find himself. He has this family that, like, they don't want him to... all they want him is to marry someone within the Middle Eastern faith, and he just can't find the right girl. And then one night he meets the right girl at one of his stand-up sets, and they slowly start to fall in love. But stuff and turmoil starts to come within their relationship. But unlike most romantic comedies where it's just like, oh, it's just this dumb misunderstanding. No, you understand why, because she finds, like, these pictures of all these girls he's dated, and she's like, well, what? No wonder why you don't see me every 3 days, because you have all these other girlfriends. He's like, just like, no, it's not that. And then when she gets sick and he finally realizes, oh wait, she's everything to me, and meeting her parents and watching Ray Romano and Holly Hunter in this movie give some of the best performances of their career. And yeah, this movie hit me. I was laughing just as much as I was crying, because not only is this movie hilarious, there's this one excellent scene, if you saw in the trailers, where Ray Romano's like, where Ray Romano's talking with Kumail and is like, oh yeah, I'd love to talk. I've always wanted to talk about 9/11 with someone, and Kumail's just like, you've never talked about 9/11 with anyone? And it's excellent. And I love how this movie doesn't, like, it shows that Kumail doesn't want to marry doesn't want to marry, like, a Muslim wedding, but it doesn't talk down to the religion of Islam. Like, it shows his brother who did have an arranged marriage, and he's doing perfectly fine, and he's being really happy. Just Kumail's just like, I want to marry this woman. She's the love of my life. I've realized that. And I love how this movie doesn't have you apologize for its characters. I love how the ending of the movie, where she wakes up from her coma and is awake and is finally able to go out and do things, how she doesn't immediately accept Kumail's apology.
Yeah.
How she's like, no, the last thing you did was break up with me over text. I'm still mad at you. And how her parents are like, listen, we know what you really are, but we're going to support her through everything. And it makes the ending so good when they finally do get together.
Yeah, this was another one that's in my honorable mentions. I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else did, I think. Okay. For me, like, being a person who hates romantic comedy so much, because it did follow some tropes, especially the third act followed a lot of romantic comedy kind of tropes and cheesiness. For most of it, though, the beginning through most of the sickness and everything, I thought it was genius. It was some of the funniest moments of any movie this year, in my opinion. It was freaking hilarious. My favorite part is, like, when Ray Romano and Kumail, that's how you pronounce it, right?
Yes.
Kumail. They're sitting down at the table at the hospital, and Ray's just like, so what's your opinion on 9/11?
Yeah.
And he just starts cracking up, and I just started cracking up, and then every line of dialogue after that just gets funnier and funnier, and I was like, this is incredible.
And not just, like, there's this one scene that Kumail and Ray Romano have where Ray Romano's staying at Kumail's apartment, and it's so awkward, yet so funny, yet so heartwarming, all at the same time, where Ray said, there was one time when I cheated on her, and it was at that moment that I realized I love her because I've never felt more awkward in the world. And I thought, like, holy shit, this movie is so smart and so well written. It was written by Kumail Nanjiani and Emily V. Gordon. I really hope this movie gets a Best Original Screenplay nomination at the Oscars. I love and just watching the scenes where Kumail just breaks down, like that scene on the stage where just everything starts to hit him, just realizing that like he may never talk to her again.
Oh, that scene is so good.
And
so
just
good.
This movie, it is excellent. It's one of those movies I can recommend to anyone. Anyone. I don't see how you could not like this movie. It's such a funny and heartwarming movie. Yeah, check out The Big Sick. That's my number 9.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so moving on to number 8. For me, I'm not sure. I feel like this will probably be on your list, but I'm not sure. For me, my number 8 is Shape of Water.
Okay.
So, Guillermo del Toro is one of my favorite film directors of all time. I adore most of his movies. I have the Criterion collection of his Spanish horror trilogy, which has got Cronos, Devil's Backbone, and Pan's Labyrinth. And I think Pan's Labyrinth is an absolute masterpiece.
Of course.
Every time I watch that movie, I cry. It is the perfect amalgamation of what he does, making adult fairy tales, you know? And it works so freaking well. And I just absolutely love it. So when I heard The Shape of Water was coming out, when I first was looking up online before like there was any posters or trailers, I was like, this sounds kind of weird. Like, because they didn't have too much about the monster. It was just like this girl living in I think it's 50s or 60s.
Yeah, 60s, yes.
And there's like, it has to do with Russians and everything. And I was just like, that sounds really weird for Guillermo del Toro. And then I saw it, and the build up to it was so exciting for me because I was like, I gotta see this movie. I'm so excited.
Got a ton of festival buzz.
Yeah, exactly. I think won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. So I finally got to go see it, and I adored it. I wouldn't say it's as good as Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay. Yeah.
But it is fantastic. It is so well done. The everything about it I love. The cinematography is so expressive. The way it uses the colors in it, and it looks fake, but that's what kind of is fun about it. Cause like what he does, it's an adult fairy tale, you know. Of course. So it looks fake, but it deals with adult themes too, you know. Like all of our main characters are misfits. We have a mute, we have an African American woman, we have a gay man, you know. You have a fish man, and then even like the antagonist is an outcast. He's kind of a weirdo, you know. Even that, and it's just so fantastic. And the story and the love, like the scene, because the movie's about the love between this woman and this fish man, you know, and that sounds really ridiculous and kind of weird, but he pulls it off. He pulls it off so well, where it's just not only like believable, but you really like, you're like, don't break up, you know, you're like, don't leave, you know, can you two stay together? And it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful movie. The directing is wonderful. Guillermo del Toro killed it again. What's the main actress's name again?
Sally Hawkins.
Oh my God, she only speaks one time in this movie during a dream sequence, and she is so expressive. Without using any words, it's unfreaking believable. I am so amazed.
I agree, and we will talk about this later. All right, so going into my number 8, I could tell you who made it. I could tell you who started it, but I think I can just explain this movie in 3 words. Oh, hi, Casey.
Oh, my God.
The Disaster Artist was a movie that hit me very much on a personal level. As someone who has seen The Room 8 times in my life, in the 4.5 years since I've seen it, I am a huge fan of this movie. And when I heard that James Franco was directing and starring as Tommy Wiseau in a film about the Room based off of Greg Sestero's book, The Disaster Artist, I thought this was either going to be the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. And I'll tell you, it was a lot closer to the best thing ever because I loved this movie. I still don't say what you will about James Franco. There is no one who could have played the role of Tommy Wiseau better. The way how he hits every single outlandish and insane quirk about Wiseau of just completely breaking down, like, what is this man? How does this man work? And at points in this, something I love about this movie is that, like, it does not shy away from the dark parts of Tommy Wiseau. It shows that he was kind of an asshole at points, but it also shows that he was a passionate man that had his dreams, that was somehow able to fulfill those dreams because of his just huge stash of money that he somehow had. Yeah. And just the way how this movie was just a beautiful, like, story of this friendship between Tommy and Greg, and how although they fight at points, they will always come together because they have this common dream and goal, and how they will do anything to succeed at it. And watching Greg as this guy who's like normal, who just wants to make it, and Tommy's just this insane guy that just sees something in Greg. Yeah, I loved it. It was I said how much I loved him. I laughed at The Big Sick. This was the most I laughed in a movie.
I think so. I agree. This is another one of my honorable mentions on there. I think this is probably the funniest movie I've seen this year.
Of course.
And I heard a bunch of people saying like, "Oh, it's a good movie, but it's not a laugh out loud movie." I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I thought this thing was hilarious. I was dying at it. Like I had some minor complaints. Mostly it was the score I thought was really bland for it. But I think James Franco was so good. Like the funniest thing is I think he probably deserves nominations for Best Actor for playing such a terrible actor. Yeah. You know, it's insane. He did such a good job.
Yeah, and like if you love movies and want to become a filmmaker, I think this should be a movie you should watch just to show that you should never lose your drive no matter what people tell you. Because that's the beautiful thing about Tommy is that everyone told him, you're awful, you're never going to make it. And just there's this one interaction that really hit me. It's where a character that Judd Apatow plays, he's like this casting director, and he's talking to Tommy, and he says, it's not going to happen, not in a million years. And Tommy just says, but after that? And that's funny, but like that is how he works. Exactly. He thinks like, okay, fine, I'll wait a million years, but after that I'll make it. And the way how this movie is shot, like it's sort of documentary style, so it's like you are on the set of the room and just watching all the insane things, and watching how no one told Tommy no because he had all the parts. No one told him that you can't shoot and film and digital simultaneously. No one told him that you can't just ABO all of your lines in post. No one told him that you can't just have a character be played by another character in the middle of your movie. This film is brilliant, and I gotta say, of all the scenes I saw in 2017, the scene where they are filming the sex scene in The Disaster Artist has got to be my favorite because, in my opinion, there are a few moments in film I've seen in a while that just perfectly explore like the insanity of one's mind and just seeing how he's so particular and how he just has no self-awareness and how Dave Franco and Seth Rogen around him are like, what are you doing? Like, stop this. And I loved it. And although I don't think you have to have seen The Room to enjoy, have you seen The Room?
Yeah, I've seen
Okay,
The Room,
good. Well, I don't think you've had to have seen The Room. There are little touches that
increase
it, and you will not get if you have not seen The Room. For example, Tommy's introduction, the way how they shoot that is just how they shoot Chris R's introduction in The Room, the drug dealer.
Right. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I mean, I laughed while I watched this movie, despite it not being a comedy. It is as core a drama about these two friends that come together to fulfill their dreams. And The Disaster Artist, number 8.
Awesome. All right, so on to number 7. I actually don't know if this will be on your list or not, but for me, my number 7 is Baby Driver.
Nice. Okay.
I can't even describe my theater experience seeing this. So, Edgar Wright, obviously, he's a master.
Absolutely.
Absolute master, a master of filmmaking. So I remember actually seeing him after he had finished the script because I follow him on Instagram, and he had put a line from the script that says this movie is driven by music, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know. But I didn't realize how much he meant by that. Like when the opening scene is probably, I don't want to be too bold, but it's probably my favorite opening scene of any movie this year.
Okay, I have to think about that, but yeah,
for me, simply because as I was sitting in the theater and I was watching this, I was unbelievably entertained. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's stupid to say like, oh well, it's a fun movie, you know.
Yeah.
But this movie not only is fun, but it challenges the form of filmmaking too.
Yes.
You know, and like thinking about how Edgar Wright had to do all of this planning to get these exact moments. For those of you who don't know, the movie every pretty much not I wouldn't say every moment, pretty much almost
90%.
Yeah, almost all of the movie. The actions that the characters do and the events going on correlate to the music that's being played. So like the gun firing will go along with the beat of whatever the music's playing, and usually the song fits it. Like there's a simple part that doesn't correlate to music, but it's "Run the Jewels" by Run the Jewels, and it's right after they had just stolen a bunch of guns.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like every single moment the music just fits perfectly, and I love it. There are some plot holes in it, but it's things I can look over because I'm having so much fun watching it that it's brilliant. I can't even imagine the planning and execution that Edgar Wright had to do with it. Cinematography's gorgeous. I love the main core of the movie is basically just an American love story, pretty much. You know,
Yeah.
It's set in Atlanta. It's these two young people that meet. One of them's a criminal, and he's trying to escape his life of crime so he can go run away with this girl. And like that's just such an like typical American love story, you know. But it's so everything about it I just love so much. It is definitely the most entertaining and exhilarating film I have seen, not only this year but the past several years. It is so freaking fun. I loved it so much.
Yeah, Baby Driver, I wanted to put on my list. There were just some movies I just personally loved more. But yeah, everything you said. This film is masterfully directed. Edgar Wright is one of those filmmakers that I forget how much I appreciate.
Yeah.
I like at times I'm like, okay, like I know he's a great director, but I always think of him just as like this comedy guy. But then I see something like this, and I'm like, oh no, this guy is one of the best filmmakers we have working today. This is just, and I got to applaud him that he took this $39 million movie and made like this. It made it seem like this huge blockbuster with this great cast with John Hamm, with Jamie Foxx, Ansel Elgort, and of course Christopher Plummer.
Oh yeah, Christopher Plummer,
incredible.
great in this movie.
I know we don't like to talk about Kevin Spacey anymore, but Kevin Spacey is very good.
Yeah.
And the relationship which he has with Baby is excellent. Jamie Foxx with his weird, insane tendencies.
He's
of
so good.
Always
He's
knowing
so
like,
good in this
okay,
movie.
this guy is on edge, and
I
I
know,
just
right?
want to get as far
I do
away
not
from him.
trust him.
And yeah, the romance didn't get me as much as I wanted to, and I think that's why it didn't quite get on the list, is because for something that was the main part of this movie, I think that was the part I connected to the least. But I mean, this is one of the best, some of the slickest action I have seen in a film since like Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, and I've said this several times to my film buddies this year. I honestly, obviously it's not my number one, so I don't think it's the best film of the year.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably the most important film of the year because it shows that independently you can not only make a movie that brings an audience in, but it shows Hollywood that people still want to see movies that are strange and challenging and everything like that. Because like you said, this movie had $39 million. And at the box office, I think it came about to $200 million.
Yeah.
You know? So it made back like 6 times?
Yeah.
Nearly 6 times its budget, you know? So that's why I think it's probably the most important film of the year. Maybe not the best, but I think one of the most important.
Yeah. And yeah, just a killer soundtrack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Like I love Edgar Wright's British films, but when he goes American, it's just as excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Baby Driver, check it out. Okay, so my number 7 is one we talked about a little earlier, and that is The Shape of Water. Just a beautiful film in
gorgeous.
every fashion. Like just the way how I love Guillermo del Toro. And although I enjoy like Hellboy and like Pacific Rim, these are the movies I wish he made. Like these small, intimate adult fairy tales like Pan's Labyrinth and like The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water, the directing is absolutely masterful. How he uses these long takes in these really enclosed and tight and cramped spaces, yet still makes you feel like you are open and like you are free while watching this movie, because you are watching this woman by the name of Eliza free herself by meeting this fishman who can't talk, just like how she can't talk, and finally finding someone that she relates to the most. And it talks about like what does it mean to what are we to call something a monster, and what are we to call someone an outcast in this society. It is about finding your true self The love story that forms between Liza and Doug Jones's fisherman creature is beautiful. I love the pairing of Sally Hawkins with Octavia Spencer because while Sally Hawkins Eliza doesn't talk, Octavia Spencer's character doesn't stop talking.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the best way, because you understand why they would meet, because Sally Hawkins just listens to Octavia Spencer, and Octavia Spencer's just like, well, this woman can't talk to me. She's willing to listen to me, and I love that. And yeah, Richard Jenkins, like, he was also excellent. I will love Michael Shannon in everything.
Oh my
he
god,
does.
this is honestly probably one of his best roles, and it's like it's kind of like the normal Michael Shannon thing where he plays this kind of like outrageous guy, but he does it so well. Like, not only is he intimidating, but you're like, this guy's kind of a twerp too.
Yeah, and like this is a just like with Baby Driver, where they took a $39 million movie and showed it that audiences do care enough to see this. This movie cost $19 million. It looks like it cost $100 million,
Yeah, it does.
and it was able to get the attention that it deserved because I've always said the best marketing for a movie nowadays is to make a good movie. That doesn't happen all the time. We'll talk about when, sadly, it doesn't, hopefully later on the list. So Guillermo del Toro is a Mexican filmmaker, and you can tell that him being a Mexican filmmaker, he views things that us American viewers might find comical. Like, this is a movie that opens up with Sally Hawkins' characters masturbating in a bathtub. And, like, in any other movie, that would just be seen as, like, this humorous moment. But no, it's just like, no, this is what she does. This is her routine day. It shows how she wakes up, goes to work, plays with herself in the bathtub, gets dressed, and just how mundane her life is, and how her meeting this creature is sort of like a spark in her. And man, the practical effects in this movie, incredible.
Holy cow.
Doug Jones is the Andy Serkis.
Oh,
of
I
practical
love
effects.
him. He embodies the character so well. You know, it's just like he's done it on Guillermo's work before
Just
with
how
Pan's Labyrinth.
he
You know,
nails every movement that you would think of this reptile that you've never seen before, and you're just like,
you're like,
that
yeah,
is-
that's real.
That,
That's
yeah,
real.
that,
you know?
that is how.
There's no doubt in my mind that that is really there. You know.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to touch on is just how well this movie has. You can tell that Del Toro has just such a love of cinema. Not just the fact that the characters live above this movie theater, but how those seamlessly affect into the plot, and how they affect the characters, and how they affect all the characters' actions. I know there's this one scene that I know took a lot of people out, which I do not understand, because that was one of my favorite scenes in the entire year, where Sally Hawkins is dreaming when she's dancing.
I love that.
I love
like,
that.
I guess I can see why some people got thrown off by it, but I was like, this is wonderful. This is gorgeous. You know,
I
like,
thought it was
it was
beautiful.
so
I thought it was
heartfelt.
such heartwarming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was completely earned with all the dark stuff that was going on. It's like, I would like a moment of levity in this film. And this movie probably had the biggest moment of me thinking, like, oh, I think this is going to go one way with what the fish creature's powers are. I don't want to spoil the entire ending of the film, with what the fish creature's powers are, and then eventually seeing what he was going to use those powers for. And I'm like, oh, wow. And this film just left my mind completely blown, because I had just seen the work of a master. I'm predicting right now, I do think this movie will most likely win Best Picture.
Oh, you think
and
so?
I do, of all the movies that are coming out, or at the very least, Del Toro will win Best Director.
Okay.
And although I like 6 more movies this year that came out more, if this movie wins Best Picture, you will hear no complaints from me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is with this movie, I usually hate movies that shove a political message in your face.
Yeah.
You know? Like, especially ones that don't do it in any subtle way. Mm-hmm. They're just like telling you something. But with this movie, it does. The only political message it really sends is that people need to take a stand.
Yeah.
You know, like take a stand against injustice is pretty much. And then it's political, but it's more of just like a moral lesson too. Like, you need do the right thing pretty much, you know. And he just slides it under there like you never would expect. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, and the Cold War subplot was just blended in so. I go on for this movie for a lot longer, but yeah, number 7, Guillermo del Toro, Shape of Water.
4. All right, so on to number 6. So this is where my list started to get difficult, actually.
Okay.
Because for these next 6, these were the ones I kept switching out constantly, being like, maybe I want this one higher. No, I don't think. Maybe this one goes lower. So this one was tough to put at number 6, but I have The Florida Project at number 6.
Okay. Wow.
I see. Like I said, these was tough to do it in this order.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I now have no idea what your number one is.
Really?
But keep on going.
You think,
yeah.
think
I thought this was gonna be your number one, but
Yeah, I know. It was pretty much my favorite until these last like 2 months, and then I saw a bunch more, and I was like, and the thing is, the differences between these are so minuscule.
Yes.
You know, between the rest of the 6 to number 1.
Absolutely.
And the thing with this movie is like, this is the type of filmmaking that I love. It is just humanist filmmaking, where it's just about people, pretty much. You know, it's not really about plot or what's going on, because there really is no plot to this movie at all.
Yeah.
You basically just follow this little girl, Mooney, around during one summer in Florida, and she lives in this really shitty motel where Willem Dafoe is the owner, I guess.
Yeah, owner.
And oh my god, the story is heartbreaking and it just touches you on a spiritual level almost, because it's just like, I love every one of these characters, but I hate them too.
Yeah.
And especially the mom. I don't remember the actress's name, but oh my god, I hated her, but I was like, I don't hate her, you know?
I did not come up with this quote, but I heard this quote talked about when this person was discussing the film Colossal, which is not going to be on my list, but it's a very good film nonetheless. They said it's about shitty people doing shitty things, trying not to do shitty things, but still at the end of the day being shitty in the end.
Yeah,
and I think that is a very good explanation for the Florida Project.
Totally, yeah, totally, because it's so beautiful, and that little Brooklyn Prince,
incredible.
She is going places, because I can't even describe. And beyond that, Sean Baker, I don't know how he found this girl and how he directed kids so well, where I feel like I'm watching a documentary, because these kids are completely natural. Like, they do things that kids just do, you know? And it's so beautiful. I know I've said that so many times, but it is just such a beautiful movie. And Willem Dafoe, I want him so bad to win Best Supporting Actor, because this was the first time I've ever seen Willem Dafoe, and I've been like, I love you. You know?
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the times where I'm not scared of him.
Okay, that is fair. That is fair.
I'm not terrified of him.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. But like, he does such a heartfelt performance, and his character is so just well done in every single way. And the cinematography is reserved and gorgeous at the same time, you know? And it is just such a beautiful movie. I loved it so much.
Yeah, Florida Project was another honorable mention for me. But yeah, just for what you said, this is a movie that, on one hand, is completely cynical. Like, it is looking at the world like everything sucks, and these people are never going to change. But at the same time, it also kind of looks at it through this childlike wonder of saying, like, maybe we can get to this place. Maybe we can change for the better. And yeah, this was an extremely, like, just as you said, a human movie. There's going to be another movie like that on my list that for me did a lot better. Okay, I think I know what movie.
I wouldn't say a lot better for me, but
for me better.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the child actors in this movie were all excellent. They seemed like real kids. This in a way may be the saddest movie of the year, because it talks about, like, what would happen if you have just a source of happiness with Disney World, and you have it. And it's
right at your fingertips.
It's right at your fingertips, but you can never go there because the
world
just puts you down,
you know?
At this point. And yeah, just you said, like, there's one other actor that I would give Best Supporting Actor to for Willem Dafoe, and we'll talk about that in later down this list. But yeah, he should absolutely be at the very least nominated, because I loved his character so much.
He was like, I was like, can you be my dad?
Yeah,
please? I was like, can you please be my dad, because I love you.
And just the entire tone and like how this movie was shot to make it seem like this dirty and run down. Like it seemed like a real movie of what it would feel like to live in the slums. The only reason why it's not on this list, and I don't want to create too much of an argument, but I know we're going to create an argument, and I do not care. The ending to this movie does not work because it is completely tonally lopsided from everything the film had built up to that point, but that is just my opinion.
No, I mean, I've heard that from a lot of people. I personally don't. I mean, I see what you're saying, but like, I think I understand where Sean Baker was going for it artistically, and to me, it was like the perfect ending. For me, it was perfect. So I mean, I totally respect people who thought the ending wasn't. They didn't like the ending, you know. But for me, I loved it.
Yeah, I get what
loved
he
it.
was going for. Just for me, you just can't. You just can't do that for me. Where you have this, where the entire ending of the movie is going such in like a real like depressing way, and then just sudden like if you want to put a happy touch on it, fine, but then suddenly make it the most whimsical ending you can think of, and yeah, it just didn't work for me. If it didn't have that ending, easily would have been my top 10, but still excellent film, The Florida Project.
Awesome.
Okay, so my number 6, maybe the most controversial movie of the year, which is odd because it's not some sort of small independent art film that like I say that, but then I remember Mother, but no, this movie is more controversial than that, and it's not quite the movie that you would think is the most controversial movie of the year.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I'm of course talking about Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, thinking about this movie more, I get why someone would not like it. I get if you have been a fan of this franchise for 40 years and have grown attached to Luke and Leia and Han, that you might be and have theorized about what is going to happen after Episode 7 for the past 2 years. I get why you would feel somewhat dissatisfied by the choice Rian Johnson made. But for me, as someone who loves it when movies subvert my expectations, this was the exact type of Star Wars movie I needed. Rian Johnson brought something to this movie the same way that Irvin Kershner did back in 1980 with Empire Strikes Back. When you think this movie is going to zig, it zags. When it zags, it zigs. I love how expanded on the characters of Rey and Poe and Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren in particular is becoming one of my favorite characters in the entire trilogy. Finally seeming like a three-dimensional character instead of just this. Like, I liked him in the original one. He was a little emo in that one.
Yeah.
This one, he's finally becoming his own villain. And I like how just like, oh, you think we're just going to address like who this omnipresent villain is? Well, guess what? I don't really care about that because it's about Kylo and Rey. And I'm happy they made that. I'm happy they're making Rey into her own character. I really like the supporting characters. I really liked, especially Holdo, but I even liked Rose. We don't have to talk about what they did with Benicio del Toro. But, yeah. And some of the best action I have seen in all of Star Wars. The throne room scene was incredible. The scenes where you have Rey and Kylo communicating over the Force. And I don't care what anyone says. This is my favorite, at the very least, performance from Mark Hamill in any Star Wars films. You can quote me on that.
I would agree. For me, I didn't write a review, so I'll just comment. This actually wasn't in my honorable mentions even, but I'll comment on it. I agree with the Mark Hamill thing. As one of the complaints that people had, one that I completely didn't understand at all was the hatred for Luke's character. I thought it was the best version of Luke's character I've ever seen before.
And if you look at where Ben Kenobi and where Yoda were in the original trilogy, this was the only place Luke can go. He saw this entire thing that he was building up. He saw it completely taken away, so of course he's going to become this recluse.
Yeah. For me, there was definitely lots of things I liked. So I liked Luke's character a lot. Another thing I really liked was the tightness of the story, because like everything pretty much happens with like I technically don't know how many days it was, but it feels like it's like one day that everything in the story happens, you know? So I loved how tight that was and how everything began to intertwine near the end. So I really liked that. I definitely had complaints with it. I'm not taking either side. I'm not taking I love it or I hate it. I'm more just like, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was pulpy. It was fun for me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but definitely not one of my favorites of the year.
Okay.
But it was I'm stuck between whether I liked that or Force Awakens more. They're both really good in my opinion. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, I personally prefer this a little more, and I think the reason why I love this is because on one hand, although it feels incredibly Star Wars-y with the cool creatures that are introduced and the cool planets that you go to, while not all of them works, they all feel very unique. This also feels unlike any Star Wars movie I've ever seen because of how little action you really find in this movie. Although you open up with this incredible space battle, a lot of the movie is just Luke explaining to Rey what it means to be a Jedi and why the Jedis can't exist anymore, and Snoke explaining to Kylo what is the Sith and why we have to rebuild this empire, and watching these characters change over the film and watching their arcs. I loved it. for a franchise that has been around for 40 years, I don't want to see the same movie over and over and over again. I am so happy what J.J. Abrams did. He got people to love Star Wars again, but I am so happy with what Rian Johnson did in this movie, in which he completely subverted all your expectations. It feels like a standalone movie, and I have never been more excited to see where Star Wars is going to go. Top 5, let's go.
Top 5, here we go. Number 5. For me, I think you're going to be surprised at number 5 is. I was surprised that it ended up actually this low. For me, number 5 is Blade Runner 2049.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure this is going to be on your list somewhere.
Yes, this will.
So
let's just get that out of the way.
First off, we said this in our we already have a review, so I feel like we don't need to go too in depth about why we love this movie so much,
Yeah.
But I mean, best cinematography of the year. If Roger Deakins doesn't win an Oscar, I am going to fucking lose it.
He's never won.
I will literally.
How is that happening?
I will literally lose it. And I've been talking to my film buddies, and they're like, I mean, the guy from Dunkirk could win. And like, if the Oscars give it, I mean, Dunkirk had great cinematography.
It did.
But it is not Blade Runner.
It's not.
It is not Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous. Performances were great. Directing was amazing. Tiniest bit of problems with it that were mostly nitpicky.
Yeah.
They never really took me out of it too much. Yeah, just a masterful film, absolutely masterful film. I don't think I need to expand too much upon it. You can watch our review if you want.
Yeah, it was just a great. It was an excellent sequel in every way you can make an excellent sequel, and it's the type of smart sci-fi I like to see. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it will be later on my list, so I guess we can talk about it then.
Cool.
Okay, so coming into my top 5, in the same way that The Last Jedi kind of felt like the end of an era for certain characters. My number 5 is also definitely the end of an era for another very popular character. I just have one thing to say. So this is what it feels like. Logan, baby.
Oh,
what's up?
Nice.
Okay, so looking back on 2017, I think this has taken the place of 2008 of being the best year for superhero movies. Because we had 6 movies that ranged, in my opinion, from decent, okay, to amazing. But of all the movies that I saw, of all the superhero movies I saw in 2017, Logan was the one that connected with me the most. But the thing is, I hesitate to call this a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Because for me, this is what would happen if you took Children of Men and Unforgiven and put a main character with claws in it.
Yeah.
And it is incredible. Watching a character like Logan, I'm not going to call him Wolverine because this is a very different Wolverine than what we have seen from the past X-Men movies. Watching Logan, realizing that he is at the end of his life, realizing that his time is almost up, and realizing that he cannot do the same things that he once could. Watching him completely broken down, but then slowly get that last spark of life in him when he realizes that he has a daughter in Laura was heartbreaking, but at the same time inspiring to say, like, no, there is a reason to live on and why he has to move on and complete this mission. And although this movie may not, unlike a lot of X-Men movies where it's like, oh, the end of the world's happening, this is definitely the smallest scale movie where, Logan's just running away from this group of people that are hunting down mutants, but at the same time, the stakes have never felt higher. I have never felt more in danger while watching any comic book movie, like thinking, oh crap, these characters can die. And as someone who's been a fan of the character of Wolverine for a long time, Wolverine is my favorite Marvel character, and thinking that Hugh Jackman is one of the greatest, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is one of the greatest actor to hero portrayal. Yeah. Seeing him finally be able to be Wolverine in this movie as this guy that just does not care anymore, is willing to kill at any moment just to get the mission done. Hugh Jackman was just incredible in this film. This was definitely a passion project of him, just like as well as with the director James Mangold. I feel like with the Wolverine, I saw glimpses of what he wanted to make, but this was the movie where he finally said, "I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say no to the studios if they say they want me to do this." And you got to thank Deadpool for convincing Fox to let them make this movie. Yeah. This was just a 2.5-hour movie that. It once again, it just goes like that, but at the same time, it ends at the perfect point. All the performances are incredible. Patrick Stewart is the best he's ever been as Professor X. Just a tragic character in this movie that is completely losing his powers and notice that he is like a walking atomic bomb, that he can kill anyone in a moment's notice. And Daphne Keane, she was a discovery in 2017.
Yeah.
Like, she is going places, and she is just absolutely brutal as Laura. And despite the fact that she says very few English lines in this movie, I completely got everything about her character. And yeah, I really loved Logan. It was a brutal film, but it was an excellent film.
Yeah, so as for superhero movies, this was kind of a big year for me because I started to realize that I don't mean in a cliche way, but I've become bored with superhero movies.
Yeah,
Not because
that's
I don't like superheroes. Like you should see the comic book collection in my house. It's enormous. I love superheroes, but now that I've delved into film so much, every time I kind of go to see a superhero movie, I get just bored kind of halfway through. And the biggest revelation was with the new Spider-Man one because Spider-Man is my favorite superhero film of all time. So when I went to Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. So when I went to go see Homecoming, I had, I wouldn't say high expectations, but I was excited. And I left just kind of like, eh.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was all right. Not that it was a bad movie, but to me, it just kind of played it by the books.
Yeah, okay.
You know how it was.
That's
but
fair. I really loved Homecoming.
But with Logan.
Yes.
Wow. This has only ended up in my honorable mentions. It didn't end up on my list.
Okay.
But it was the only superhero movie I consider like, yeah, this could be in my top 10.
Yeah.
It is amazing. I agree with pretty much everything you just said. Like, cinematography is gorgeous. It is like Children of Men, you know, but with the superhero putting into it. The relationships are wonderful. Acting great. Directing's wonderful. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great superhero film.
I would, once again, I would not call this a superhero movie. I would call this a Western that happens to have superheroes in it. And
like
it is
a neo-Western.
Yes.
Kinda, you know?
It was an incredible send-off to the character of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. And I got to say, there is no image in any film of 2017 that will stick with me more than Laura tilting the cross on Logan's grave at the end of this movie to symbolize that he was an X-Man. It blows every other X-Men movie out of the water, and I'm okay with it. It took us 17 years to get this, but we finally got to see Wolverine done right on screen. And yeah, number 5, Logan.
All right, so number 4.
Okay.
So this is the most recent film that I saw.
Okay.
And not only is it the most recent film that I saw, but it's the most recent one obviously added onto my list.
Yes.
And it kind of threw me off because after seeing this, I was like, well, that fucks up my entire top 10.
Yeah.
Like it just threw a wrench into the whole machine. So for number 4, I have Phantom Thread.
Okay.
By Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yes.
So wow, this movie, I didn't even understand what I was watching until like 3/4 into the movie. Then I was like, oh shit, I get it now.
Yeah.
You know? And it's so hard to find words to start with. So let's just start with actors, I guess. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Of course.
Do I even need to say anything? Can I just say his name? I mean,
he is the GOAT.
He's
amazing.
He is, and like, this is such like a plain character compared to some of the others like he's done, like Lincoln or Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood. You know, this is like such a plain character, but such a messed up character too, and he embodies it so damn well.
Yes.
And do you know the actress who played Alma?
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm looking her up right now, but
she held her own up against Daniel Day-Lewis, and it was incredible.
Yes.
It was incredible. Them two together, every scene was just like, oh, God, something bad's going to happen. And it was like, and the...
Vicky Krieps.
Huh?
Vicky Krieps.
Vicky Krieps?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Incredible.
Yeah. Incredible. And then on to Paul Thomas Anderson himself. For those of you who didn't know, he not only directed this film, but he was also the cinematographer for this film.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, first time doing it as a cinematographer, and I was blown away.
Yeah.
It looked like you wouldn't think about it. You're like you would never consider like the director was also a cinematographer on this. It looks so gorgeous. It looks beautiful. And like I mean, he could be a cinematographer if he just wanted to quit directing. You know, like the cinematography is just that good in this film. There are some moments where it's abstract in a sense,
yes.
And there's moments where the camera's stable, but the composition is just gorgeous. Oh man! And the last thing, the score.
Oh gosh,
Johnny Greenwood.
He.
Oh
I was
my
about to
God!
say
It's
Bruce
like
Greenwood.
No,
no,
not
not
the same guy.
not the same Greenwood.
Johnny Greenwood. this is I don't think this is his first orchestral score, but
Yeah.
the power. This is the only like orchestral score that I've actually listened to. You know, like
Okay.
I go back and I've listened to this album
Yeah.
several times. It is
Okay.
that good, and it is so enjoyable. The movie's amazing, and yeah.
Yeah, when you take a master filmmaker like Paul Thomas Anderson, who, in my opinion, has only led me astray once with Inherent Vice. I didn't really like Inherent Vice. And you take Daniel Day-Lewis, who has never led me astray. You are bound for greatness, and that is what this movie is. This is an excellent movie. I saw this around a week ago. I'm still digesting it. I could see this. It's not on my list, but I can see in the future this movie getting on my list. I feel like I need to see it a couple times because I think I get it.
Yeah.
But I really need to discover it a little more and digest it because this is a deep movie.
Yeah.
This is going to take a movie to notice all the little like details that the movie places in it, all the little foreshadowing things. When the twist happens in this movie, you're like, oh.
I just want to say, like you were talking about with the Disaster Artist, with your favorite scene, the climax of this film is the best climax I've seen of any film this year.
Yes.
It hits you and you're just like, holy shit!
Oh, yeah.
What is happening? You know, and it is just that scene is incredible. That is definitely my favorite scene of the year. Probably.
Yes.
It is wonderful.
Yeah, it's an excellent film. It's not on my list, but I could not sing the praises of that movie enough. So yeah, Phantom Thread. Okay, so my number 4. I know we were talking about a movie that you said, The Florida Project. You really loved it because of how human it felt. And how sort of like it didn't really quite have a story. I wouldn't quite it didn't really have like a traditional story.
It doesn't focus on plot, pretty much.
I wouldn't say that quite. I think this movie focuses on plot a little more than Florida Project. But I love this movie for why you love the Florida Project because of how human it is. And once again, it's an A24 film. I'm talking about Lady Bird. Lady Bird, Lady Bird, Lady Bird. In the same way that Logan featured a character at the end of their life cycle, this is a movie that features a character at the beginning of their life cycle. And my God, Lady Bird is not a... Some people describe Lady Bird as a coming-of-age film. It is not a coming-of-age film. It is a goddamn documentary. Yeah. This film is so relatable if you have ever felt like you are somewhat of an outcast from your friends or your parents, like they don't quite get you and you just want to get away. And looking at this movie, it felt like I was looking at a mirror, and I have to thank so much Greta Gerwig because she based this movie so much off of her. Like, while it's not quite a autobiographical movie, she focuses a lot. She takes a lot of inspiration from how it was like growing up in Sacramento in 2002. She also went to Catholic school. I'm guessing she probably had a similar relationship she had with her mother. And my God, Saoirse Ronan.
Oh,
like I've always loved Saoirse Ronan. This is the best she has ever been.
Definitely.
She and I know this seems weird if you've seen the trailer. She transforms. Like I had if you told me, if I had never seen a performance by her, I never would have guessed that she was Irish because she plays just this average,
or even
American,
not a 17-year-old teenage
girl.
Like, wow.
Yeah, she's incredible. And Laurie Metcalf, although it seems like Allison Janney is getting the most buzz right now for Best Supporting Actress, I'm sorry, Laurie Metcalf blows her out of the water as this mom that while she doesn't, it's not like she doesn't want her daughter to succeed. She is just so afraid that her daughter is going to fail that she doesn't want her to overstep her boundaries, so she's going to get mad at her. And there are so many small human moments, like the moment where she's buying her dress, where she's writing the name of like both of her loves on the wall of her bedroom. The scene where Lucas Hedges comes out to her and says
that's a
please
powerful
just
scene,
don't tell my parents I'm gay, and just I was near tears in that moment. There's one small little thing I really don't like because I just felt it was really cliched. It's the lie she tells to one of the popular kids in school to get them to like her. I didn't like that. But other than that, this was just an excellent and human, a funny film. When this movie wanted to make you laugh, it made you laugh. It was a relatable film. It was another film that just felt like a slice of life. It doesn't really end. It just says, okay, your time watching these characters, it's over. Yeah, Lady Bird, I cannot tell you how much I love this movie.
Yeah, Lady Bird was another one of my honorable mentions.
Okay.
I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else did. Again, some of the other films. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
It was hilarious, like you said. I really liked the simple humanist stuff. One of the subplots it kind of goes on is a bit too cliche for me that got kind of bored a little bit.
Was it the one I'm talking about?
Kind of. It's the
Okay.
whole thing with her and the popular kids.
That's fair. That's fair.
I was like,
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
we've seen this before. I don't really want to see it again. But everything else was great. The directing, writing was great. Saoirse Ronan, fantastic. Pretty much all the acting was great. Hilarious. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely one of the best.
And just one last thing I want to say. There's a subplot in this movie where the dad, who's financially this family the entire year, they are in this sort of like financial pit, and they're struggling to try to make ends meet. And when the dad finally thinks he has a job and realizing that he's going up against his son for the exact same job, like that's got to hit.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah, I was amazed. Like, although, I mean, despite the main character of this movie being a girl, like I related so much to all the coming of age aspects of this movie. And this is probably one of my favorite coming of age movies, up there with Almost Famous, for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, Lady Bird, man, just incredible.
All right, number 3. I don't think this is going to be on your list.
Okay.
Again, a controversial movie this year.
Okay.
I'm sure you know what it is.
Let's talk about it.
I got Mother.
Mother!
Yes.
Gotta put that exclamation point in there.
Mother! So, lots of people did not like this movie.
Very true, very true.
Lots of people loved this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I am, as you were with Star Wars, I am with Mother.
Okay.
The theater experience I had with this movie is just what I imagine, is just what I imagine when I think of having a good cinematic experience. Because while watching it, I was just trying to figure out what was happening. And then I figured it out, and then it just got better. And, there's so many, it's so hard to find words to say for this movie. One of the main things I love is this movie is very metaphorical. You know,
yes.
It's a metaphor of a film. You know,
yes.
But not only can it work in a more socio-political / religious sense, but even just the sense of kind of what the movie's talking about being married to, or like even just a relationship. You know, being in a volatile relationship, being married to an artist. You know, like it uses these things, and it can tell this story in several different ways, and I think it's amazing. I love all the acting. Jennifer Lawrence, who I've never liked before. I've always been like, Jennifer.
Never? Wow.
No,
okay.
I've always been like, Jennifer Lawrence is good. Not
Okay.
great, but she's good, you know? And then I saw this and was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
She embodies that character so well. Hey, Javier Bardem is terrifying, but at the same time, he's like compassionate, you know? And it fits his character perfectly. I think the cinematography was great. And one of the things that I feel like it teetered with where it lost a lot of people was definitely the second half of the film, because things start to get really crazy in the second half of the film, like batshit crazy.
Yes.
And for me, while watching it, it did it in a way where I wasn't like, this is ridiculous. You know, I was like, oh, you're telling me something every time one of these things is happening. You know, you're trying to say something. And I absolutely loved it. It was probably the best cinematic experience I've had in a theater this year. Probably, I would say for my number 1, but probably the best cinematic experience I've had in a theater this year. It was gorgeous. It was terrifying. It was stressful. It was heartfelt. It was eye-opening. It was just, in my opinion, what good cinema can be. And since we're probably not going to see a movie like this in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm really happy I was alive when this movie came out and I got to see it in the theater. So.
Yeah, Mother was good. I know it's kind of a hot take, just to not be very strong either way. But yeah, I definitely did like Mother. I have to applaud Darren Aronofsky for just going at it at every opportunity. Personally, at some points, I felt like that was a little bit of his downfall, because I think my main complaints with this movie is not that I didn't get it. It was more like, okay, I get it. Like, I understood the metaphor pretty quickly. When the people that are supposed to symbolize Cain and Abel came in, I was like, okay, now I get this. And I think when that happens, the directing just became a little too on the nose. But with that, the directing technically is excellent.
Yeah.
Like I really do just got to once again, I appreciate this movie more than I like it. That a movie like this not only exists, but it was able to cause the conversation in film.
Yeah.
Like, and I love when movies just come around like this. But yeah, it was a beautiful film. I thought the performances were really great. I thought the writing, especially, was excellent.
I've actually read the script, and it's so insane because reading the script is just like watching the movie, where you just feel claustrophobic all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how can you do that with writing and then translate it so well? Oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
I think we talked about this. I think the scene that just completely took me out of it is when. We can say it now. When Kristen Wiig shows up,
Yeah,
I
didn't.
it completely
That was
took me out.
That was one of that.
Yeah.
That was I think
It was just
my
such a
only
big part.
complaint. That was like that was my only complaint with it. It was just like she's only in there for a second, and she takes part in kind of the huge things happening.
Yeah.
And so it almost seems comedic, and you're
Yeah.
just kind of like, why is she in this movie?
And
You
I
know?
mean, but yeah, but
But for-
honestly,
For me, I could just totally look past that.
Yeah,
the
that's fair.
cinematic experience was bigger for me.
and once again, I did like it. I wrote a review. It was the only film I think we both wrote individually a review
Yeah, I
because I
think so,
wanted to
too.
get two different perspectives on it. And I thought it was a good movie. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I didn't love it. I liked it, but you got to appreciate that a man like Darren Aronofsky is working today.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if you are still shocked that Darren Aronofsky is going to put religious themes into his movie. Have you seen Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, The Wrestler, Noah, any of those?
For real. For real.
Okay, but yeah, Mother, good movie.
Mother.
Good movie. So my number 3, we talked about it earlier. It is Blade Runner 2049. There are so many things I could say about this movie, and we've said a lot of them already, but I just have to preface this. This is a movie that should not have worked.
I know, right?
This is a
Totally
movie
agree.
that is a sequel to not only a masterpiece, but a masterpiece that came out 35 years ago. Whenever a sequel comes out to a movie decades later, it is almost always destined to suck. You have Tron Legacy. You have Terminator 3. You have Indiana Jones Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You have Dumb and Dumber 2. All those movies are awful. Yet somehow, not only did Denis Villeneuve make one of the best sci-fi films in years, but he makes a movie that is a believable sequel to the original Blade Runner, and I understand why the world of Blade Runner, which was set in 1982's version of 2019, I get why that world would progress to 2049 in this world. Mm-hmm. I said it before, and I still stand by this. This is the most beautiful movie I have ever seen. Every shot is a painting in this film. Roger Deakins, just the way how not only he has every shot framed, but all the color choices and the color palettes.
Oh my God.
It's so bright and so vibrant.
Like all the basic shots that you have where it just be like a 2-shot. It's just like, wow, this is gorgeous still, you know? There's never just a shot that's just like, let's just take this shot, you know?
Yeah, and in the same way that I said with Disaster Artist, where you don't have to have seen The Room to enjoy it. But kind of taking that further, I know people that do not like the original Blade Runner that loved this movie. And I think but still, even if you did love the original Blade Runner, this movie is kind of made for you because it has these callbacks that don't completely take you out of the movie, but it focuses on it just enough for you to appreciate it.
Exactly. I'm one of the people that think the original Blade Runner is a masterpiece, especially,
I do too. It's one of my
especially
favorite films of
Ridley
all time.
Scott's masterpiece.
Yeah.
And then I saw this and I was like, I think I like this better
Okay.
than the original.
That's
this
fair.
movie, yeah.
I would not go that far, but I cannot preface how much I love this. And I don't think I've said his name yet, but I have to give, and I know filmmaking is a collaborative effort, but you have to give the majority of the credit to Denis Villeneuve. The fact that he made this is or Denis Villeneuve. I looked it up. How you pronounce it? Denis. Yes.
My whole life's a lie.
I know. This man is my favorite up-and-coming director working in Hollywood right now. The same way that someone like the Coens or Tarantino just took the 90s by storm, or how someone like Paul Thomas Anderson or Christopher Nolan took the 2000s by storm. Villeneuve is making the 2010s his decade. Every film he has made in the past, since 2010, has been excellent, and this is one of his absolute best. How he crafts this amazing story and ends up combining with just these incredible visuals with these old characters that we've grown to love, while also introducing these new characters and focusing more on them and making it their story. God, I love this movie. It is a 3-hour movie that goes by like that.
Yeah, and I've heard people say Denis Villeneuve is the greatest director today. I wouldn't go that far,
Not
but
quite.
I would say he is the greatest director working in Hollywood today.
Yes.
I think in my opinion, he's surpassed people like Christopher Nolan and everything as the great for me.
I think I would have to think about that, but I think
Yeah.
you have a point there. I think within like 10 or 20 years, if he keeps this up, he will go down as one of the great directors of all time.
Yeah.
Thinking as someone that knows how the movie industry works, I get that giving $150 million to basically an art house director to say, and just saying, go nuts, may have been a little foolish. And I get that. But as someone who loves movies, I could not have thanked that choice enough, because I could not imagine my life without this movie. I loved Blade Runner 2049 so much. Denis Villeneuve, I cannot wait to see what you do in the future.
All right, number 2. We're getting there.
Almost
We're
there.
getting there. Number
Almost
2.
there.
So, this was a film I actually didn't get to see in theaters.
Okay.
I didn't get to see it in theaters, and I was heartbroken that I didn't. So immediately when I got the money, I bought it on Blu-ray, checked it out, and I am so angry at myself that I did not see this film in theaters. This movie is Good Time.
Okay.
By Josh and Benny
I'm
Safdie.
so happy we can talk about this movie. It didn't quite make my list, but I thought it was a great movie.
Watching it, it was just like I've heard people describe Dunkirk as Anxiety Attack the movie.
Yeah.
This movie
Yes.
is Anxiety Attack the movie. You're watching, you're like, everything's gonna go wrong. Something has to go wrong. Things just can't go right now. 'Cause
Yeah.
as you go, just things get worse and worse and worse in a believable and terrible way.
Yes.
You know? As much as I wish I know it's not gonna happen, but if I had a choice, I would choose Robert Pattinson as actually, I wouldn't say he'd be close to being the best actor. I'll be heartbroken if he doesn't get nominated.
Yeah.
But holy shit. I have never seen Robert Pattinson this good before. I've seen him in Rover,
Yes.
the Rover, and I think he did great in that.
Yes, very good.
This one,
This was just
he
Yes.
is Connie.
yes,
You know, he
another
is
level.
Connie. It is unbelievable. It is like it's not like like I said, like an outrageous kind of Daniel Day-Lewis where he's like Lincoln or anything like that, you know. But it's just like he is so believable and he's so real. Like he's just someone you'd run into on the street in
Yeah.
Queens, you know. Like, oh, it is so gorgeous. The cinematography was daring. It was disgusting. It was experimental. It was weird. It fit the movie perfectly. I think it's Josh, or is it Benny Safdie, who plays his brother. I think it's Josh, but I could be wrong. Either way,
I'll look it up.
oh my God. I'd seen interviews with them before.
Yeah.
And then I watched this and I was like, that's the same fucking dude? Because he just seems so real. I would
Yeah.
never imagine him be able to do that. That's one of like those more outrageous roles I'm talking about. But he's just like,
Benny.
that's real. It was Benny?
Yeah,
Benny Safdie? Oh my God. I wish I could marry you. That role was unfreaking believable. I can't. It was so Josh Safdie is just unbelievable in his role. Like
Benny Safdie.
damn it, Benny Safdie. Benny Safdie is just unbelievable in his role, and the plotting of the movie works so well. There's a twist that happens in it that it threw me off guard completely because it's just something I never would have thought of, and then the plot goes in a completely different direction than you would expect, and the theme of the movie is so powerful of pretty much like all of our characters are stuck in prisons, you know, whether it be an actual prison
Yes.
for some of the characters, a mental prison, societal prisons, and they're all kind of trying to break free, but none of them can. It's pretty
Yeah.
much what the movie's talking about, you know, like you just can't, like freedom is harder than you'd expect, pretty much. You know, like you free, but you're not really free. And it gets the message across so well, and it's such a beautiful movie. It's terrifying and the anxiety it gives you. It's funny. I'd say it's a near masterpiece, and I can't wait to see what Josh and Benny Safdie do after this. It's going to be incredible, I think.
Yeah, Good Time was great.
It was a good time.
Although, yeah, good time. Not quite. I would say it was a good time, but
No.
the movie is good time. In the same way that something like the Florida Project, it shows a glimpse into another part of America's life. But unlike that movie, where although it's cynical at the end of the day, it still has this touch of optimism. This movie is completely cynical.
Yeah,
It says that
completely
these
cynical.
people have an awful life. It didn't quite make my list, and it wasn't. I didn't love this movie quite as much as people did. I gave it an 8 out of 10, which is still great for me.
Mm-hmm.
But there were just other movies that for me this year I liked more. I did have issues, which I will explain. This movie was a comedy. Connie in this movie, Robert Pattinson's character, I kept on struggling to decide whether either A, he is the unluckiest man in the world and is having the worst day of his life, or B, is just having a competition with himself to see how many awful decisions he can make in one day. Because this movie took me on a loop so many times thinking, why are you doing that? And just like, oh man, why is that got to be happening? And yeah, I thought it was great how the movie did that. They made another movie a while back ago, and this directing style they do a lot where they make everything seem very cluttered. But unlike their older movies where it seems like, okay, I don't think they were quite doing that for purposeful reasons. This movie, it seems like, okay, this was part of the directing. So while it still did get on my nerves a little, I could see it was an artistic choice in that decision. I think there were just a couple points in this movie where I thought it got a little too cartoony, where I was like, okay, it's starting to take me out a little bit, but like I'm still enjoying where this is going, but it's not quite the gritty, realistic movie that I liked. But yeah, this movie is a roller coaster of a film. Just once again, just these awful people that just like end up in this way that you end up feeling bad for. You're just like, oh come on, just do something good. And the ending to this film is heartbreaking. Josh Safdie is excellent as his role in this movie.
Or was it Benny?
It's Josh.
It's Josh?
It's Josh.
Okay.
No,
it is Benny.
It is Benny.
Yeah.
Gosh, dang it.
Okay. They're one person. Josh and Benny Safdie are great.
Coen brothers. Which one is which? One is married to Frances McDormand. Okay, but yeah, this was it was a hard movie to watch at times that I could not keep myself from watching. Yeah, good time. Great movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not a good time, but
not a good time, but
a great movie.
Very good movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 2. I went back and forth between my number 2 and my number 3, whether Blade Runner 2049 or this movie was going to be my number 2. And at the end of the day, I decided to go with this movie because while I think Blade Runner 2049 is an absolute technical marvel in terms of an achievement in film, there is no movie that affected me personally more than David Lowery's A Ghost Story. I've talked about a lot of A24 films. This, to me, is their best film that came out this year. When I saw this movie, I was going through a bit of a rough time because I was having a hard time letting go from someone in my life. And I saw this movie at the perfect time because the main theme of this movie is about how we are all on our personal journeys, and at points we have to let go of certain things in order to move on. And that is exactly what this movie did. And unlike a lot of movies on this list, like, a lot of this movie I can selfishly say, like, oh, I can't see how anyone can dislike that. Like, of course you can dislike any movie, but I don't see how you can watch a movie like Lady Bird and not love it. Yeah. If someone came up to me and said, I hated A Ghost Story, I may strongly disagree with them, but I would get it. Because this is a very non-traditional movie.
It is a testing movie.
Yes. This is a movie that is 90 minutes, and almost the entirety of that 90 minutes is Casey Affleck walking in a ghost sheet.
Yep.
But I don't mean that as an insult, because as he is watching, it raises so many questions. It raises it asks me, what are people going to think? What is going to be my lasting impact on this world? Do I personally have to move on from just certain situations? And when is it time to move on, or should I just keep staying? And if I were to die tomorrow, what would people think, and how long would it take them to move on? This is an incredibly artistic movie. It's a thought-provoking movie. I was in tears at certain points of this movie. The ending of this movie completely blew me away. As the credits rolled, I could not get out of my seat because I was just like, what did I just watch? There's probably the most famous scene in this movie. This gained gained fame or infamy from some people is the scene where Rooney Mara is sitting in her kitchen and it's just a still shot of her eating this pie.
That damn pie.
And I know this seems like, oh, she's just eating a pie. It is a 7-minute uninterrupted shot of her eating the pie while Casey Affleck in the ghost sheet is watching her. And in that 7 minutes, you go through every single emotion that the movie wants you to go through. The first time you're like, wow, this is really kind of hitting her hard. The second emotion is like, I'm kind of holding on to this a long time.
Yeah.
Like something happened. The third time emotion, you're like, wow, they really are holding on to this a long time. What's going on? And the fourth time, you're like, oh, wow, this movie is showing what grief can do to people.
Yeah, and it kind of gets you the feeling like, wow, something is really wrong right now,
because that's what would happen when someone you were so close to if they just died one day and you knew that they were no longer there, you would just be drowning in guilt and grief, just thinking like, could I have done something? Or just thinking like, I can't believe they're gone. And that was just one of the things just one of the emotions I experienced among the dozens of questions
and what I find interesting about that scene, it was almost like a test for the audience, because as that scene was going on, I just see people like filing out of the theater.
Me too.
People just filing
I saw
out.
someone walk out of the theater at that point. I'm like, I am completely captivated. There is something that is hitting me that just isn't hitting you, and I feel so bad for you.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Unlike Blade Runner 2049, where it's a 3-hour movie that I think could have gone on for another 3 hours, this is 90 minutes, and I wouldn't want it to be a minute longer. And that's not a knock on the film's quality. Far from it. In fact, I went through so much while seeing this movie. This movie goes through an entire, not only lifetime, but multiple lifetimes, seeing this house that Casey Affleck's character does not want to go away from, and seeing just how he has these connectivity issues and how he doesn't want to move on. I got so emotional while watching this movie, and I felt like I had gone through so much, more than any movie this year. 2017 was a movie where I learned that I needed to move on from certain people, and this was the movie that I'm happy that I saw to finally convince myself from that. It's not my favorite film of the year, but it is probably the most personal movie of the year.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
So, before we hit number one, there are a few honorable mentions that I want to go over. Once again, 2017 was an incredible year for film. I had such a hard time leaving all of these movies off. I had 12 honorable mentions. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I'll start. Lots of actually what we already talked about were already in my honorable mentions. So actually, by this point, I have like 4 that we didn't talk about, or 3 or 4. So I'll start with the first one that I knew that I wanted to have in my honorable mentions. I knew from the start, because I knew it wasn't going to be in my top 10. I knew it wasn't going to make it there, but it was a film that I saw, and I walked out of the theater, and I was just like, that was so, I don't want to say enjoyable, because it's a sad movie, but I walked in and I was like, I had a great time while I was watching that. And that is Last Flag Flying.
Okay,
Richard
yeah,
Linklater.
yeah, definitely.
Richard Linklater is my favorite film director of all time for personal reasons. I don't think he's like the technically most amazing, but for personal reasons, he's my favorite film director of all time. And this movie has flaws. It has several plot points that I just think could have been taken out and the movie would have worked fine. But the performances are great. All their 3-man cast, Steve Carell, Lawrence Fishburne, and Bryan Cranston especially.
Absolutely.
They're all great. And it's an enjoyable, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's just such an enjoyable movie. And like I said, I knew it was gonna be my top 10 because it has flaws, but just it's so enjoyable. You walk out just feeling like that was refreshing. That was really refreshing. So yeah, Last Flag Flying.
Okay, do you just want to go through all yours, and I'll
sure.
go through all mine?
So Last Flag Flying. Let's see. Then I got Get Out and Logan, which we already talked about. One that we did not talk about was It Comes at Night.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
this great movie.
This movie had me in a roller coaster of emotions after I left. Because I left the theater and I was like, I fucking hate this movie. And then I was like, you know what? I really love that movie. And then I was like, I fucking hate it. And I was just constantly going back and forth between the two. And I finally ended up being like, it's a good movie. It has flaws in it that I think kind of take away from the experience of it. But damn, is it good. It plays with the form of film a lot, which I really appreciate it doing. It's terrifying in not a horror sense, but it's just terrifying. The acting, all of our actors are amazing in it once again. The cinematography is really interesting because they only use, as far as I know at least, they only use natural light. So they didn't use any artificial lights or anything like that. So it was really cool. Have problems with it, but it's really awesome. Another awesome A24 movie.
Yes.
And I think the only other one, another A24 movie on my list that I did not make it in my top 10 because I do think it has some problems, but I really enjoyed it, was The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Okay.
Another, how do you say it?
Excellent.
Yorgos Lanthimos?
Yes, Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yorgos Lanthimos. Weird as fuck.
Yeah.
Weird as fuck movie. It makes you extremely uncomfortable while watching the whole thing. The final scene, again, the climax is terrifying, and it's gut-wrenching and great, and I loved it. I have problems with it. I think some of the points that he was trying to get just didn't work. For me, I just think they just weren't as good as they should have been.
Okay.
With something like The Lobster, but super unnerving. What's the dude's name in this?
Barry. I can't pronounce it, but it's Keoghan.
Keoghan, Barry Keoghan.
Yeah, Barry Keoghan.
Oh God, he is so uncomfortable.
He's
Because
incredible.
I'd seen him in Dunkirk earlier, and then I saw him in this, and I was like, this is not the same dude.
I know.
This is not the same dude. Yeah, he's extremely, extremely good in this movie. Best actor out of all of them. Better than Colin Farrell and everything. He was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's all I got.
Okay.
The other ones I had on here that we already mentioned were The Big Sick, Lady Bird, and The Disaster Artist.
Sounds good. Okay, so some of my honorable mentions: Phantom Thread, once again, beautiful layered film. Thor Ragnarok. What a blast I had watching this movie. Taika Waititi perfectly was able to work within the Marvel studio system while also making his own excellent film, just with all the vibrant colors, wacky dialogue. Yeah, I loved this movie. Baby Driver, we talked about, just a heck of a lot of fun. Wonder Woman, other than Logan, the best superhero movie that came out this year. It almost convinced you that the DCEU could have been saved. Of course, Justice League came out, and it's like, no, okay.
Never mind.
But yeah, I mean, Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot completely understood what the character of Wonder Woman was. The same way that Logan was a Western that happened to have a superhero, Wonder Woman was a war movie that happened to have a superhero in it. And unlike a lot of superhero movies, the romance actually really worked with her and Chris Pine.
Totally agree.
Yeah, other than the aforementioned scene from The Disaster Artist, No Man's Land was my favorite scene of all of 2017. Florida Project, we talked about, excellent film. Killing the Sacred Deer, I also have on my honorable mentions. I loved this movie. It was a creepy movie.
Yeah, it was.
That also had me laughing at certain
Yeah,
points.
I know, because it makes you
so
unsure.
awkward.
You're like, am I supposed to laugh here,
Yeah.
or am I supposed to be terrified? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's really
Yorgos
cool.
Lanthimos is becoming one of the most interesting directors working today.
Yeah.
I actually prefer this a little more than Lobster, because while The Lobster, I thought the first half was amazing. After the second half, I wish it would have gone a little more places.
Okay.
But yeah, I love this movie once again. Barry Keoghan. Martin was my favorite villain in all of
God, yeah,
2017.
he was so terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coco is on my list.
Oh, I didn't see that one. Yeah.
Beautiful, heartwarming film. Not my favorite Pixar movie, but quite possibly their most visually striking movie. Had a predictable twist in there, but yeah, I love the characters and I loved how music was used in this plot. I, Tonya. I didn't
see that one.
I was
either.
surprised at how much I loved this movie.
Yeah, I going into trailers, I was not excited. I didn't understand the hype for it because to me it looked very similar to American Made, the Tom Cruise movie that came out this year. And if you read my review, I was like, it's all right.
Yeah,
it was a decent movie. And so when I saw it, I was like, I don't see what I'm so excited about. So.
I, Tonya, this blew American Made out of the water. Margot Robbie is a powerhouse. This is the best she has ever been. And Allison Janney and Sebastian Stan were also really good. I loved how this movie was told in sort of like this false interview way, so it let the movie be as historically inaccurate as it possibly could while still keeping the audience's attention. Yeah, I really loved I, Tonya. A lot of people think I hated this movie, Dunkirk.
That's what I wanted to put in my honorable mentions too. Forgot about.
I
that
thought
one.
Dunkirk was great.
Yeah, I thought Dunkirk was real. Like people described the anxiety attack. The movie.
Yeah.
I feel that like every time you're just like, oh God, what's gonna happen? Everything bad's happening.
It's not my favorite Nolan movie, but I thought it was a great movie. It was incredibly other than Blade Runner and Shape of Water, easily the best directed movie I saw all year. Just this huge scope this movie made, despite being a PG-13 movie, it has the intensity of an R-rated film. And yeah, I thought Dunkirk was great. I have not seen a World War II movie quite like that movie. Wind River was a movie that when I was going through the list, I was like, oh my gosh, I loved that movie. It's a movie that physically makes you feel cold, not just because you're looking at the cold vistas of Wyoming, but just the subject matter and how it deals with it shows how hard like a murder can be on some people and how like dark it would be. And it showed like one of the most realistic shootouts I've ever seen on film is in this movie. Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen getting probably the best performances of both of their careers.
I was considering putting that one. For me, it was just the first half was much too boring for me. Until it gets to the flashback scene, then I got really engaged. You know.
Okay.
I was considering it's still. I would say definitely check it out. But I didn't. I don't think I enjoyed it as much
that
as most people did.
Ending where Jeremy Renner's
cool.
with the
that was a good ending.
Yeah, not spoil it. And it's definitely my least favorite of Taylor Sheridan's American trilogy.
Yeah,
for me, it goes Hell or High Water, Sicario, Wind River.
Same.
But I can't deny how intense and dark and excellent of a movie Wind River is. And probably what would have been my number 11, I really wanted to put it on this list because I've always been a champion for this series, and that's War for the Planet of the Apes.
I didn't see that one. I really wanted to see that one.
With this, I do not care what anyone says. This is one of the best trilogies I've ever seen in movies in terms of consistent quality. I don't like this one quite as much as Dawn, but I cannot deny how excellent this movie was. Andy Serkis is once again excellent. It would be so amazing if he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I know he won't because the Academy hasn't quite looked at performance capture in the way they should. Yeah. But performance capture has never been this technically impressive. This is what I like to call the thinking man's blockbuster, where it's not quite as eventful as you might think, despite being called War for the Planet of the Apes. You think this is going to be the biggest one. But no, this one is very much a moving journey. It deals a lot with vengeance. It deals a lot with trying to form a new world. I loved War for the Planet of the Apes. It is my official number 11. Right. And I have one other honorable mention, but I'm fairly certain it's going to be your number 1.
Okay.
So
you might be right.
Now we have our number 1s, and we are going to do something. We are going to try and guess our number 1s by simply asking one question. And I have one question to ask you, Casey. Is your number 1 a Peachy movie?
Oh my God!
Yes, it is, baby. God. What's up?
Oh yeah, you got it.
Yep.
You got it. So, I don't even need to guess what your number 1 is. We'll get there when we get to you. So my number 1 movie, as for some of you who haven't seen the movie, is Call Me by Your Name.
Yes.
I honestly think this movie is a masterpiece.
Okay.
Completely. Like, I've heard people have complaints about it. I've heard people completely disagree. I honestly don't care. I think this movie is a masterpiece. It just doesn't try to be what it's not in any sense. It's calm and it's expressive and it takes its time and it knows its characters so well. I mean, at its very basis, it's just basically a summer love story, you know. And as many people who have talked about this movie before have mentioned, it's a gay movie, but that's like an afterthought. It's kind of like our character's gay, you know, like that's just kind of what it is. It's not something like Moonlight where it's like he's trying to that's the focus of the movie is pretty much that he is gay. It's kind of just like, yes, he's gay, but the focus is like the love story. Yeah, you know, and our main character kind of like trying to find his identity as he's coming from 17, you know, through this summer, trying to really figure out who he is and coming to conclusions that he's gay with this and his love for this other man and everything. The movie's calm. It doesn't rush at all. It is beautiful and heartbreaking. The score is it is so good. It's probably my favorite score of the year, right above Phantom Thread. That's when I stopped myself when I was talking about Robert Pattinson winning Best Actor. I think
Timothy Chalamet.
Timothy Chalamet deserves Best Actor. He's good in Lady Bird. He is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
In this, phenomenal. It is. It's the movie just makes, when I watch it, I'm like, yes, this is what a masterpiece looks like. It is gorgeous, slow, quiet, doesn't shove anything in your face. It feels real, but the cinematography is expressive. The director, what's his name?
Luca Guadagnino.
Yeah. I'm not even going to pronounce Luca. I'm just going to call him Luca. He does an incredible job crafting this film. It is so heart-touching, and the final and I read your review where your complaint was the kind of like the ending,
Yeah.
like the Act 3 resolution,
The final scene was not bad. I just think if it would have cut off 5 minutes earlier, I think it would have been a little more effective for me.
Yeah, I see that. For me, I was thinking the same thing going into it, but after it was over, it kind of like, I was like, oh, I'm really happy this was actually in here. And the final shot, the actual final shot,
Yes.
holy shit. Holy shit. I cannot. I was just in the theater and just shivers down my spine. And like, there's movies where like I sit there after and I'm just watching the credits because I can't get out of my seat. This one I literally couldn't get out because I was just in awe of what was happening on the screen,
Yeah.
And it was, I could go on forever about this movie. But I honestly think it's a masterpiece. It's wonderful. It is wonderful.
Yeah, Call Me by Your Name was excellent. I actually saw this movie on my birthday. Me and my best friend, we always go see a movie on my birthday, and yeah, I thought this was an excellent, beautiful, touching love story that it just like Lady Bird, it's a coming of age story that takes place over a year, and once you get over, I'll be honest, I was a little creeped out at the beginning with the age difference, and especially the visual age difference, where Timothée Chalamet is a 23-year-old that is playing a 17-year-old that looks like a 15-year-old. And he's dating Armie Hammer, who is a guy in his early 30s that looks like he's in his mid-30s. Once I got over that, I was completely into it because the movie completely sells everything it is. It doesn't try to add these weird subplots into it. It doesn't try to, as you said, be something that it's not. It knows that it's a small movie, but it revels in that it's a small movie. It revels in it's a human story about finding someone that you love, finding that someone that I wouldn't even call it a gay love story. It is simply a love story.
Yeah, completely. So, it's like there's any typical like old summer love stories. Did you hear about old movies of summer love stories?
Yeah.
Just exactly that.
Just this one exactly kid that makes a connection with someone else, and just watching that relationship form. If you know why I called this a peachy movie, you know what I was talking about, because that scene. At first, I was watching. I was like, "Oh gosh, is this
like is this not happening?"
And then I was like, "Okay, I kind of understand where this movie is where this scene is going." And once the whole actual "Call Me by Your Name" scene, I love that. But for me, the best scene in this movie involves Michael Stuhlbarg, who plays the dad to Timothée Chalamet,
scene.
And when he's talking to him about the relationship he had with Armie Hammer.
That destroyed me.
Wow. And that's what I said. I wish the movie would have just ended there. And I get what it was going for, and that was just one of the complaints I had. But yeah, this is an excellent movie. I couldn't quite get it on. It was an honorable mention, but really
this may be strange sounding, but like I've never watched a movie with two gay men where I was like, that's pretty hot, like I've never thought that before. I've been like, okay, yeah, this is happening. And then I watched it, I was like, holy fuck, like these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so impressive. It was amazing. It was so good. And it's so good too because you see his relationship with the girl, and you're like, oh my god, he is so much better with the other guy. Just go there.
Like, he seems like this toxic guy with this girl, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I would not be mad if Timothée Chalamet won. Personally, I would probably tip a little in Gary Oldman's case, which Dark Hours, it didn't quite make the honorable mention, but it was a great movie. But yeah, Timothée Chalamet was excellent. Armie Hammer was excellent. Michael Stuhlbarg was excellent. Michael Stuhlbarg was like the MVP of 2017, just that guy, how he appeared in The Post, Shape of Water, Call Me by Your Name, and even Fargo Season 3. He was just excellent in everything he popped up in just these little roles. But yeah, Call Me by Your Name, it is a beautiful, tragic film.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, so, I wonder what could be your number one. Out of all movies, what could it be? Does it have anything to do with advertisements that you might see while driving along a freeway?
Yes. In fact, 3 of them. You could say it is 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Yes, this is my favorite movie of 2017. Wow. This movie completely blew me away, but not quite for the reasons that something like A Ghost Story did. But unlike A Ghost Story, where it hit me because of how emotionally effective it was and how it asked me so many questions, 3 Billboards hit me because I was constantly surprised at every turn this movie took. There was not a single movie that for me had me wondering what was going to happen next in such a fun way, because everything was so surprising in this movie. And not only was everything so surprising, everything was so amazingly crafted. The directing, incredible. The cast, incredible. You put this against any cast this year, and I say this cast comes out on top for pound. You have Frances McDormand, you have Woody Harrelson, you have Sam Rockwell, you have John Hawkes, you have Peter Dinklage, and they are all amazing.
Even the tiniest roles, is it Lucas Hedges?
Yeah. Lucas Hedges, he's very good in the movie.
Like, it's just like he's just there, but he's perfect.
Yeah. The script, easily my favorite script of the year, because this is a movie that deals with, as its main plot, the raping and the murder of Mildred, Frances McDormand's character's, her daughter, and how she has finally had enough with the world, and how she's going to finally take this up with the police. It deals with dark subject matter like that, but I am laughing my ass off at certain
hilarious.
moments. It is so funny because of how smart it is, and because of how perfectly the director, Martin McDonagh, just captures everything about this small Midwestern town and makes it feel like a real Midwestern town. And not only does he make the location feel real, he makes the characters feel real. These are some of the most realistic characters I've seen on film in a long time, because other than Peter Dinklage, I would say, and maybe Lucas Hedges, I don't think there's a single good person in this movie. They all have their very own shades of gray. Mm-hmm. And because whenever you think you have finally made your mind about a character and think like, okay, I know what I'm going to think about this character, they completely do something that completely changed that. Mildred starts out as this tough woman who isn't going to take no from anyone, and is going to finally have the police get off their butts and figure out who murdered her daughter. And one of my favorite lines she says is, yeah, it'll be like one of those little rape cases you have, except this time the girl ain't losing. And I love that line. But then she does something like, someone throws a water balloon in her car, and she goes and knees the guy in the balls. Like, I get you're mad, but you shouldn't do that. Or when the guy just starts making backhanded comments to her in the dentist, and how she grabs the drill and just drills his hand. Yeah. But then she does something, and then with someone like Woody Harrelson's character, with Chief Willoughby, he seems like this lazy guy that isn't really taking this seriously, and you're like, man, this guy, how did this guy become any sort of law enforcement guy? But then you see that, like, oh wow, he is facing this deathly. Yeah. He's having this sickness that is sort of like destroying his life at this moment, and he's really just focusing on his family right now, because he realizes that he only has a little while longer. And the twist, the twist with his what was going to happen with Chief Willoughby.
I was like, that was brave and worked perfectly.
But as great as the arcs of Mildred and Chief Willoughby were, not even close to the best arc in the movie, which is Officer Dixon and Sam Rockwell's character.
You could even argue he's the main character of the movie.
In a way, he is the main character. I said I would love to see Willem Dafoe get nominated, but the reason why I don't want him to win is because this is, for me, Sam Rockwell's Oscar. He is incredible as this character of Officer Dixon, who starts out as this just horrible, racist bigot cop that just beats up African Americans because he does not see them as human beings. Finally seeing and the reason why he's like that is because he was raised by his awful mother, who, by the way, I'm not sure if you realize, is the grandma from Napoleon Dynamite.
And she's also the mom from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, nice.
I was like watching, I was like, oh shit, what's up?
Yeah, and he was raised this way, but then he sees the error of his ways immediately when someone he really respects finally tells him, hey, you're a good person and you can somehow change. Because I've had that moments where I thought that, like, this is just something that I'm gonna carry with me, not to the level that he does, but like a bad habit that I'm just gonna carry with me, and then someone that I really care about tells me, no, you're better, that I know you can change, and suddenly I'm like, okay, I can change. And even despite him going on this redemptive arc to try and figure out who the murderer was, the film, and I will argue with this on anyone, the film does not ask you to sympathize with the character, because this is a movie at the end of the day is about its simple theme, not really a simple theme, a complex theme, that anger will only beget more anger. All the characters in this movie are angry, but all of their anger and suffering, it's only going to lead to them becoming even more mad and suffer even more. And how you want them to try and just do something right and just finally, you know what, maybe not give up on finding the murderer, but at least like, okay, we should try and do this in a civil way. But instead, no, they keep on. They're gonna be like, we're gonna go do this. We're gonna go take this guy out. And it was excellent just to think like, oh my gosh, these people, like, there is no changing them. And once again, but it feels like decisions that you could see even like regular, like good standing people make, because at the end of the day, when you are that angry and when you are that pissed off at the world, you are going to make irrational decisions like the characters in this film do. And I know a lot of people had issues with the ending to this movie. I thought it ended at the perfect place because, once again, it didn't really have an ending, but it felt like I was watching it felt like I was watching it. Cut. Can you?
Yeah,
okay,
go
edit.
for it.
Okay. And once again, I loved the ending to this film, and I know a lot of people had issues with it, but the reason why I loved it is because the story isn't over. We're just done watching it. Martin McDonagh says, like, okay, you don't have to see what happens with these characters, and I'm like, I don't have to. Are they good? Are they bad? I don't think either. They're just regular people. And yeah, even like the cinematography, just that one-shot take of Dixon going
so
to the
good.
advertiser,
So
just
good.
beating the crap out of the advertiser because he's so mad of what happened to Willoughby. Yeah, I thought this movie, to me, was just an absolute masterpiece through in and throughout. Yeah, I loved it. It made me laugh. It made me cry at points. There was this one flashback that was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much that hit me. An incredible story. Yeah, I said it before. This is one of the best movies of the 2010s. All right, so that's our list. Call Me by Your Name's your number one. Three Billboards is my number one. I think 2017 was an excellent year in film.
Absolutely amazing. Like we talked about, this was a hard list to
Yeah,
make.
I could have made a top 40 if I tried.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, I thought it was great year. Really challenging movies, which I'm glad to see.
Absolutely, yeah.
A24 is their best
Of
year
course,
yet. I
yeah.
think killing it even more.
It-
independent cinema was
Yeah.
just amazing this year.
It felt kind of like a shift where movies like Transformers and Pirates of the Caribbean, while they didn't bomb, they definitely did not make as much money as people thought.
Yeah.
While movies like Baby Driver and Get Out, like, they were these huge successes on these smaller budgets, because I think people are finally, they want to see something new, and I'm really happy. And I think 2018 is looking bright, honestly.
Yeah, keeping it optimistic, I'd say. Anything else you want to say?
I think I'm good. Once again, I'm Payson Johnson. You can follow me at the Cinemaster. That is _master. No, at the _Cinemaster. And yeah, I think I'm very optimistic about 2018. Can't wait to see all the movies that come out.
Yep. Casey, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm Zenner Film, my last name, obviously, and then just film. Before we leave, just want to remind you all to check out our Amazon Associates link down below. We already explained it earlier, but if you click the link, anything you purchase on Amazon, we get 10% back, and it does not add to your overall price, so go ahead and support us. I think that's it. Thank you all so much for watching. We look forward to seeing you all in 2018.